Book Vedanta, Part 2, Chapter 1. Where does the problem exist? Have we created any unique philosophy? Do we have any unique doctrines and methodologies for ourselves? Do we follow any traditional concepts or instructions? We do not belong to any tradition. In a journey, whenever required, a traveler asks for directions to people that he comes across on his way and confirms the direction to his destination. Similarly, in our spiritual journey too, we have kept in touch with various people. Various masters, scholars and books have helped us. The success of our journey would not have been possible in the absence of their help. Even today, the people whomsoever we have been in contact with and their language are reflecting in ourselves. We could have ignored their language and created our own language like the modern saint J. Krishnamurti did. But we do not want to create such an unique castle of philosophy. We do not have any specific intention of establishing such a castle, welcome people to dwell in it, and maintain the dwellers as well as the castle. Truth does not belong only to us. This absolute truth has been explained by different masters in different words. They might have used different terms, but the concept of absolute truth that was intended to imply seems to be one and the same. We would like you to understand this truth in the same way as we have understood by receiving the help of the approaches of all the masters. So, we have not created a separate language for ourselves. Then, how do we explain our understanding of this absolute truth to others? Don't we require a specific language? We have handled only a few terms out of many other terms that the Shastras, masters, scholars and scientists have used. Even then, a few words have been used in such a way that they don't convey their traditional meaning but give importance only to the message that we need to understand. In that situation, it is essential to understand the terms used by us by fitting them into the practical applicability. Through this, it will be possible to understand the essence of Shastras and other enlightened masters in conjunction with the practical reality. Let us assume ourselves as a tree. Will it be helpful for us to spread our branches to other trees? Or will it be helpful for us if we allow our roots to spread in various directions? It will be healthy only when we make use of the good aspects of everything for our growth by not depending on anything. All of us have two eyes. Let us assume that we are viewing an object that is in front of us with our right eye, closing the left eye. For sure, the object would be clearly visible to us. Now, we are viewing the same object with the left eye, closing the right eye. Again, the same object would be clearly visible to us. The object would be looking one and the same with the right eye as it was seen with the left eye. Now, we are seeing the same object with both the eyes at the same time. What do we see now? We see the same object but with more clarity. When we look at all these ideas and philosophies in conjunction with the practical reality, then they would become our living reality. Our journey might have started from Atma or Brahman, but in reality, we now exist only with our body and the mind. We experience various problems, joys and sorrows. Where did we bring these from? Did we bring them from the Atma or did we bring them from Brahman? We don't bring any of our problems from there. Then, from where have all these problems originated? The grief that we experience is not unreal. They are all realistic. Only if we understand the origin of the problems can we find a way to approach and resolve them. We cannot blame the Atma or Brahman for all our problems. Then, how did our problems come into existence? Where do they reside? When we see a person as our friend, we feel happy. But when we see another person as an unwanted one, we get a feeling of hatred. What is the cause of all these? Where do all these problems happen? All these occur only in our mind. So, what we need to know about is only our mind. The space where we need to seek solutions is also the mind only. To get help on this, we can make use of our Shastras. We can learn from the liberated masters and also from the scientists. All their contributions are needed here. Once there lived a great Bhakta devotee. He had deep devotion to God. He lived in a hut by the riverside. One day, while he was doing prayers, his hut was surrounded by flood due to heavy rainfall. The devotee climbed upon the roof of his hut and prayed, "O God, save me from this flood." A boat came near his hut. The boatman called the devotee to get into the boat. The devotee refused to get down from the roof. He said, "Please don't own up the responsibility of saving me. I have given that responsibility to God. I am sure He will save me." The boat went away. The water level gradually increased and the devotee was drowned in the river forever. After his death, he went to God and complained, "Why didn't you come to save me?" God replied calmly, "Bhakta, I heard your prayer and sent a boat to save you. Why didn't you get into the boat?" Like this devotee, some people are caught up with their favorite philosophies. So, they even discard some truths that come in their way to rescue them. Once, we happened to listen to a discourse by a Vedic scholar. He had great regard and respect for Buddha. He had wholeheartedly accepted Buddha's enlightenment. Even then, unnecessarily, he was criticizing Buddha's teachings. It is quite natural for any enlightened master to share his experience of the truth that he found in his own language. There are many who got enlightenment by following Buddha's teachings. Somehow or other, each philosophy is connected to the absolute truth. So, all those who seek truth should make use of all possible help, even if it comes from small things such as a pin. Now, let us have a look at our mind, which is the source of all our problems.